In today's art project, you are going to be using just the letters of your own name to create a composition that shows an important art concept called symmetry, or things being symmetrical. You are going to use symmetry to create an artistic design that shows the art principle called balance. First, let's have a quick review of both symmetry and balance. Something that is symmetrical has symmetry. If it is symmetrical and has symmetry, then an object or design is the same on both sides. When an image or an object is divided right down the center, it is symmetrical if the left side matches the right side. It has the same shapes, the shapes are the same sizes, and the shapes are in the same place on both sides. Using symmetry in artwork creates balance, which is a principle of design. Balance is a feeling of having equal visual weight in a picture. Visual weight is when the size and the placement of objects on one side of a picture balance with the size and the placement of objects on the other side of the picture. And the easiest and fastest way to create balance is by using symmetry, because if it's symmetrical, it's already completely balanced. The left side is exactly the same as the right side. So, let's talk about how you are going to use the letters of your name to create a symmetrically balanced design. First, let's talk about some of the supplies that you're going to need to gather up for today's project. First, let's talk about some of the supplies that you're going to need to gather up so you can create this artwork. Number 1, a pencil. Number 2, an eraser. And of course, a piece of paper. Just a normal piece of paper this size. This is a piece of paper that I took from my printer. If you have a home printer and it has paper, you can just snatch a piece of that. If you don't have a printer or paper from a printer, go through your family's mail. This was something that came in the mail, completely clean on the back side. Go through your backpack or look under your bed. This is a piece of homework. It's graded. No one's going to need this homework, completely clean on the back side. And something that was printed on my home printer but was an accident or a mistake going in the trash, clean on the back side. Any piece of paper will do. Some of you might even have your own sketchbook with blank paper inside. That would be perfectly fine as well. And if you don't have any of these types of papers, then a regular piece of notebook paper with lines will be fine as well. Go ahead, go grab that stuff and come right back. Once you have your paper, the very first thing you're going to do is fold this paper. Now watch closely. This paper is vertical, up and down. I'm going to fold it this way so that it makes a tall, skinny thing and not this way. If yours looks like this, that's wrong. It needs to look tall and skinny. And do match up your corners and your edges the best you can before you crease this paper. This needs to be rather precise. Paper vertical, folding it like this so that it's tall and skinny. Match up your corners and your edges, precise, and then crease. Once that's creased, you can open it back up and now turn it horizontal. So this line right here is horizontal, right down the center of your paper. The next step, you are going to write your name using that line as the baseline and not making any part of your letters go below. Even the letters that have tails. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. For this project, writing your name in cursive really looks the best. If you don't know how to write your name in cursive, then just figure out how to write your name with the letters hooking together. It doesn't have to be actual cursive. It's going to make your picture unified because all of the parts will be touching each other instead of all single like when we print. Take a look, I'll show you what to do. So when you're writing your name, you really have 3 rules. You need to draw big. This is the baseline, and then you should get your letters as high as you can. Rule number 2, make all the letters hook together like cursive. So you might need to practice your name in cursive a couple of times on another paper if you need to. And number 3, nothing goes below the line. So this is our baseline. This area is off limits. Here we go. My name is Katie, K-A-T-Y. So I'm going to do K-A-T-Y. And I'll show you when I get to my Y how to fix it so that your tail does not go into this forbidden zone. Here we go. Rule number 1, super big. Here is my K, stopping at the line. My A, loops and extras, totally okay. T, I'll do my cross in a minute. And then Y, I'm going to do my Y up here, and I'm going to put my tail so that it goes to the line and not below the line. So I had to plan ahead and know that I needed to raise my Y up a little bit. Boy, my writing teacher in 3rd grade would hate that, but oh well, all in the name of art. And I am going to make my cross on here so that even it is attached to something. Everything on here is hooking together in some way. Everything is big and nothing goes below the line. Now, if you have a really long name, don't worry. You do not have to try and fit a really long name on this line. If you have a nickname that you would like to use, a shortened form of your name, a pet name that someone calls you, something that's meaningful to you, that would be fine. So those of you who have long names, think of a way to shorten it. A paper this size can probably fit 6 or even maybe 7 letters if you scrunch them a little bit. Now let's talk about making this name symmetrical, because right now that is not symmetrical. What we're going to do is we're going to transfer this onto the other side of the paper. So I really hope that you do not have anything on that other side that we left blank, because now we're going to put this there. But first, I'm going to have to trace over my name and make my letters a little bit darker for 2 reasons. First of all, I have to be able to see through this paper and still be able to see my letters, so it's going to have to be a little bit darker. But then also, I need it to be darker. I need there to be more pencil graphite on here to transfer this down to here. So all I'm going to do is just trace over my letters with my pencil a little bit harder. Voila! Now I can see it a lot better, and now there's a lot more pencil dust on there that's going to help me get this down to here. Let me show you what to do. Do you remember when I folded that paper? Well, now we're going to fold it again. The name is inside, so my name is now going to be pressed up against that blank side of my paper. And if I look carefully, I can still see, because I went over it with my pencil a little bit darker, I can see the lines of my name. Now I need a rubbing tool. You can use the cap of a marker to rub. You can use the handle of a scissors to rub. Or if you don't have those things handy, grab a chapstick or something else that is hard and kind of smooth on the end. I'm just going to use my marker. What you want to do is you want to rub with that tool on the lines of your name that you can see through the paper. Okay, I'll give you a peek at what's happening. That line is transferring to the other side. Of course, it's going to be lighter, but that's okay. You just want to make sure that you get everything. So if something is missing, there's a little chunk of my K missing, I come back and I rub that spot again. I'm going to do this to all the parts of all the letters of my name. Now I'm finished. One thing you cannot do, don't try to take a shortcut and just rub like this. Trust me, that is not a shortcut. It is faster for you to actually go down the line of each letter. Check it occasionally to make sure that everything transferred. Now let's talk about outlining these letters. I highly recommend that you find a black marker. Obviously, if you have a Sharpie, then use a black Sharpie. But I know that not everyone has a black Sharpie at home, so you might have a different type of black marker. Here I have a Crayola skinny black drawing marker. Totally fine, still black. That's what we need. But if you don't have a black marker, chances are that you might have some other colored markers. So if you have to not use black, then choose another marker that is a dark color. This dark blue would be fine. In fact, I have a sample here. This one is showing black marker. This is what it looks like when you use a darker colored marker, so you can see that would look really cool too. This is what it looks like if you have black crayons. So if you don't have any markers at home, but you do have crayons, go with a black crayon. But as you can see, when you outline it, you have to press heavy with that crayon so that the line is nice and black. And then the Y is just made with a pencil. I know that there are some of you out there that don't have any coloring tools at home, so if you have to use a pencil, you totally can. You just have to thicken it by coloring over your letter and make it about the thickness of a Sharpie marker and nice and dark. So let's get tracing. You know what to do. Go slow, stay on the line. You're going to outline both sides. I'm going to start with this side, and then I'm going to outline this as well. Take a look. All right, there I have it. Boy, outlining my name upside down and backwards was trippy. Now let's talk about what's next. Now that my name is visible on both sides of this paper, it has become symmetrical, especially if I turn it like this. The left side is exactly the same as the right side if I've done everything correctly. And so now I need to stop thinking about this paper as just being my name and think of it as a creature of some kind. So the paper now is going vertical. You need to decide which way is up. Does it look more like a creature this way? Is there anything I can recognize in here that can tell me that it's a creature? Are there eyes? Is there a nose? Is there a mouth, horns? Any kind of creature. It could be human, it could be animal, it could be monster. Try looking at it the other way. Ooh, this looks completely different the other way. I think because of those right there, that kind of looks like eyes, that I'm going to go this way. So take a moment, look at your paper, turn it, look at the other way, and figure out which way is up. Once you have figured that out, now we're going to start adding some details to this, which means we need our pencil again. So I am looking at my composition and I am going to be thinking about some details that I can add to this to make it look more like a creature. You can add anything you want to, but big rule here, you can only add to one side of the paper. So if I decide that I want to connect these two lines right here, I only do it here. I do not do it here. Just one. If I decide that I want to make some details in my eyes or around my eyes, I do it only on one side, not on the other side. So I'm just going to ask myself, what would make this look more creaturey? And I'm going to go through and I'm going to add some things that will make this look more monstery. And sometimes I will just add some things that I think would be cool designs.
Now, when you have done as much as you feel like doing, or until your ideas run out on one side only, now we are going to transfer those designs to the other side. So I've got my rubbing tool again. I close my paper. I'm going to look carefully so I can see those lines that I need to press. Open, check and make sure it worked, and continue doing this until you have transferred all of your details. Now, when you're finished, check it by opening it up and making sure that everything got transferred. Please transfer well. Do not try to guess, because everything on this side needs to look just like that side. After all, that's the definition of symmetry. Now, I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to outline all the new things. I don't know what kind of creature this is, but I think she's pretty goofy looking. Yours probably will be too. That's okay. It's a creative, fun composition. Now let's talk about what comes next.
Once I have all my details added, everything transferred and outlined, now it's time to just have fun coloring. So, whatever coloring tools you want to use, markers, crayons, colored pencils, anything you want, anything you have. In fact, you could even mix and match, use a little bit of everything. But here is a giant rule for coloring. This picture is symmetrical. Colors are also symmetrical. So if I color this area pink with marker, then I must also color this area pink with the same marker. If I color this a particular color, the matching shape on the other side, same color. And to those of you who don't have any coloring tools, Mr. Pencil here can do this whole thing. You all know that a pencil can make many different shades or values. Light, medium, dark, many shades and values in between. You could even color in little patterns, like little cross-hatching or lines or dots. The pencil can do this whole job if that's the tool that you have at home. As long as you stick to symmetry, you can use whatever tools and whatever colors you want. But of course you know that I expect your very best work inside the lines, neat and tidy, all one direction, whatever it takes to get your best coloring. Ta-da! I'm skipping ahead so that I can give you some interesting color tips and some ideas, some ways that you can challenge yourself and make this project even more interesting and super creative.
Let's take a closer look at my creature and examine some different ways that I have added color. First of all, as you can see, I have used different materials. I used markers here, 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 and several more places. I also used crayon, and you can tell it's crayon because it has a different texture. Crayon here, here, here. I also used crayon here. On this shaded area of the eye, I actually colored with a yellow marker first, and then I went over it and added some shading with a crayon. I used crayon here in light blue, and I used a darker blue to do shading here in some of the corners and sides. You can notice that I used pencil, regular pencil here, shaded, regular pencil here, in a pattern. I also used some pencil down here just to show some different techniques for those of you who will be using pencil for the whole entire monster. Shading, kind of a zigzag. This is hatching, which is just like a bunch of little. This is coloring solid, more zigzag. Depending on how hard you press with a pencil, you can get different values, lightness, darkness, and things in between. I also used pencil right here to just make a pattern of lines. I did not use any colored pencil on this, but I totally could have if I wanted to. In some areas, I just colored solid with marker. No shading, just coloring here and here. than here.
Now, I want you to pause this video, take some time with your coloring tools, markers, crayons, pencil, whatever you're going to use, and have some fun coloring and add some of those interesting, more challenging techniques like the shading or creating designs and patterns with your tools. Make this creature as creative and interesting as you possibly can. When you have finished your coloring, press play because we're not done yet. Now that you have finished your coloring, there is only one step left. We are going to mount this design. To mount it means we're going to be gluing it onto a different type of paper. We're going to cut it out first, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, but first let's talk about what to glue this onto. Now, if we were at school, I would give you a piece of construction paper. You might have construction paper at your house. If so, perfect. Choose a color that's going to look nice with the colors that you have used in your coloring. Then you may have to cut this down. Mine is too big. What I would do is I would use this paper before I cut my creature out as a tracer. Watch. I'm going to line this up with some straight edges, top and side. I'm going to hold it tightly. I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just basically going to trace around it with cutting. Now, my blue paper is exactly the right size for me to cut this out and glue it on. It'll be a perfect fit. Remember that technique because you might have to do that on a different kind of paper. Speaking of different kind of paper, what do you use if you don't have any colored paper at home? Well, there are several more choices. Your mom or someone who lives at your house with you might have a stash of craft papers or scrapbook papers. This is a scrapbook paper. I chose a color that looks nice with my creature, the colors that I have used, and I chose a pattern that's not too crazy because I don't want it to be distracting. So this type of paper would be perfect. Again, put your paper on there, use it as a pattern, cut it to size, and it'll be ready to glue on. Now, if you don't have scrapbook paper at your house either, another thing that you could use would be newspaper. You probably have some old newspaper laying around. You just need to find a sheet that is mostly text. There are a lot of artists in the world who incorporate text into their pictures, either as part of the artwork or as part of the background. So I have chosen this paper because it is mostly words and not a lot of pictures or like big, obnoxious advertisements. I would do the same thing. Put this on here, find a good place, cut around it with my scissors to make it the right size. Newspaper, easy. And if you don't have any newspaper, or perhaps you don't like the look of newspaper, then you can take a different kind of paper, this was a piece of mail, and color all over it, either all one color or make a creative pattern, something that's going to give you some color here to glue this onto when you're done. In fact, this is the one that I'm going to use to glue this onto. You can see that I have used just crayon. I didn't even color the whole paper. I just kind of did like an abstract scribble design. Don't be messy and don't let this be distracting. So I made my scribbles using colors that I took from my design, and I kept them all very uniform and kind of consistent so that even though they're scribbles, I hate that word, but that's what they are going to match and be a good background, not a distracting background, but a nice pattern to go behind my design. I'm going to bubble cut. You know what bubble cut is. This is easier and faster. So to cut this creature out, grab your scissors and you're going to cut around the very outside edge, leaving a thin line of white paper. Do that all the way around. Until you're done. Now, I have to go find a glue stick.
I am ready to glue this on. I have found my glue stick. You can use a glue stick if you have one. If you have any kind of glue at home, you could also use glue for this. Go easy if you're using glue. You can also use tape. Do not allow tape to show. If you use tape, you need to make those little wrap-around double-sided tape things so that your tape does not show. I'm going to use my glue stick though. I have my background ready. My face is cut out. I'm simply going to turn it over. We all know how to use a glue stick. We all know how to use glue. And we all know how to use tape. We are just going to get this creature attached to our background. Nice and centered. All of it on the paper, not sticking off the edges. Trying not to make it crooked. And then just make sure all of your edges and all of your corners are down.
Once your creature is mounted on the background, you're done, and you are ready to take a good photograph and send it to me in email. Now remember some tips for taking a good photograph. Make sure the whole project is on the screen. Try to get it as straight as possible. Try to make sure that your fingers are not covering the artwork. Get your fingers back as far as they will go. And try to not have a large, bright light behind your artwork. Can you see how when I put my picture in front of that light, it seems to kind of take a chunk out of my picture? It's really hard for me to edit your photograph to show the artwork as good as possible when your picture is taken in front of a bright light source. So try to stand in front of a solid wall and not a window, and not in front of a bright light like I just did. Straight, center, good lighting, snap me a picture, and send it to me in my email. I hope you had fun with this. I can't wait to see what kind of goofy, wild, creative, and interesting pictures you guys come up with this time.